Let's continue with Federalist 84. This is going to be part 2, and I'll just start with paragraph 2. The most considerable of these remaining objections is that the plan of the convention contains no Bill of Rights, which is a big thing, but Hamilton is going to say, it's no worries, it's okay. Among other answers given to this, it has been upon different occasions remarked that the constitutions of several states are in a similar predicament. I add that New York is of this number. New York, our own state, Hamilton, after all, is in New York, right? He says, you that continue to criticize us, you live in New York, you're from New York, you can look at your own constitution and compare them. And yet the opposers of the new system in this state, who profess an unlimited admiration for its constitution, are among the most intemperate partisans of a Bill of Rights. To justify their zeal in this matter, they allege two things. One is that though the Constitution of New York has no Bill of Rights prefixed to it, yet it contains in the body of it various provisions in favor of particular privileges and rights, which in substance amount to the same thing. The other is that the Constitution adopts in their full extent and the common and statute law of Great Britain, by which many other rights not expressed in it are equally secured. So he says the Constitution, the federal Constitution, is much better than our state constitution, yet the same people that think our state constitution is great are criticizing and being partisan against the Constitution. They're just not being reasonable with us. And then he's going to just continue talk about it, and as we go along, you'll see why he says that. I hope you remember that I'm doing this for you immigrants to the U.S., and by keeping a book in my hand, I'm trying to encourage you to either look at the screen while you're listening to this, or have a book in front of you, because if you don't look at the text, it's not going to really be easy for you, especially the first time. So, the next paragraph, short paragraph. To the first I answer that the Constitution proposed by the Convention contains, as well as the Constitution of this state, a number of such provisions. He says, in the Constitution, in the federal constitutions, we've got provisions that are just as good as, you can just call them Bill of Rights. And he's going to read them to us, or tell us about it, write to us. Independent of those which relate to the structure of the government, we find the following. Okay, let me take just a second here. The structure of the government, actually, he is right. It's one of the best ways of keeping the system running correctly, from establishing a republican form of government, a constitutional representative republic. Because all along, remember, he says, to protect your liberty, we have done separation of powers, division of power, checks and balances, judicial independence, election at certain intervals, not to be changed by the whim of the Congress or the judiciary or the president. You know when the next election is going to be. I've already mentioned that 2 elections took place in the middle of American Civil War. So even in the middle of Civil War, there were 2 elections, 2 national elections. So keep that in mind. So when he says this, he's really proud of it. He's just putting it in one sentence. Like I said, he's just tired. Whereas if you really pay attention to him, he says, we've given you a Bill of Rights. The most important way to give you a Bill of Rights is to establish a government that one branch doesn't dominate the other, that a group, a faction does not, even if it's 51% of the people, does not overrun and ruin the system for the rest of the population. Whether it's a religious faction, ethnic faction, a class, by their wealth, by the job they do. So we've created this system to make sure that your freedoms are not going to be sacrificed on the altar of a 51% majority that just happen to be emotional and have got things wrong and they just want to have their way. He says, what else do you want? This is the best Bill of Rights we can give you. Okay, let me now continue. We find the following in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 3, Clause 7. Judgment in case of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. So this is one way of providing you with a Bill of Rights. If somebody violated the Constitution and did some criminal act, we're not going to let them get away with it. We'll remove them from office, and we'll never let them run for office again. But at the same time, regardless of whether they're the president, a senator, a judge, they're going to be legally punished if tried and found guilty, of course. Then he says Section 9 of the same article, Article 1, Clause 2 says, the privilege of writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Now this is pretty big actually, and Hamilton brings this up. The writ of habeas corpus. Habeas corpus, present the body. It's a Latin term. In other words, they can't put you in jail and keep you for a long time without having a hearing, without showing up in front of the judge, without seeing who's accusing you, what the charges are against you. So he says, this is one of the greatest freedoms that we have, that nobody, with the exception of in the case of rebellion or invasion, they can't suspend this writ. They can't suspend this part of the Constitution. They can't take away this freedom from you. And he says this is the greatest thing. And here down, as we read, he'll actually refer to the major authority on the British law, that's Blackstone, that says something about the writ of habeas corpus and how it's the bulwark of freedom. Clause 3, no bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. So this is another important thing that he refers to. He says, we are not going to write a law now that will make what you did last year a crime. And also, we're not going to impose punishment on your family, your loved ones, take away their property just because you did something wrong. That's another one of things that really guarantees that a society is not chaotic. There's stability, there's law that rules, not people. I'm just giving you the short version, okay? I'm not explaining it in depth. Clause 7. Now this is pretty good. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Again, we're going to make sure that nobody takes bribes, nobody gets influenced by a foreign king, minister, because remember, they are trying to establish a system which has never done before on this planet. three monarchies, the British, the Spanish, the French, they are wanting in every way possible to see this practice, this experiment in republicanism destroyed. So they will find any way they can to bribe, to influence, any way they can to bring this system down so that they can tell their people, see, we told you, monarchy is the only way to go. So he says, we're going to do, we've given in the Constitution, in the text of the Constitution, this guarantee that these things won't happen. No titles of nobility. Remember, two great things happened in America. You had plenty of land, and they did away with that law of primogeniture, which in England amassed, gave all the wealth to the first son, just so that the land and the state stays in the hands of one person so that they can prolong the bloodlines and loyalties and all the titles of nobility. He says there's no such a thing like that in America. In America, we've got plenty of lands. And we've done away with that primogeniture, so a lot of people are going to have a chance to do well in the society. And we're not going to call anybody Lord so-and-so or Sir so-and-so. This is going to be a wonderful society, he says. Everybody's going to have a chance to prosper. So we'll do away with that nobility stuff, and gradually people will realize that nobody's going to serve for life just because they're of a certain bloodline. That's gone. That's done away with. We're going to bring an end to it. So we'll continue with this paragraph of Federalist 84 in the next video.